Close your eyes for a second and imagine the thickest forests on Earth. Massive, ancient secrets can hide completely undetected right beneath those leaves for centuries. This is a view stretching across the mountains of Mexico. The scale is almost endless, covered in towering trees with giant leaves blocking the sun. Stand on the ground here and your senses are instantly overwhelmed. You hear the loud buzz of giant beetles, the squawks of bright red and blue parrots, and the chatter of swinging monkeys. This chaotic ecosystem acts as a massive, centuries-old camouflage net, hiding the ground from the sky. For hundreds of years, this specific stretch of jungle has been tightly guarding a colossal secret beneath its leaves. If you were exploring on foot, you could walk right past it and never know. Because of the tangled vines and the massive leaves, there is essentially zero visibility from above. Traditional human eyes and sharp machetes cannot cut through a physical barrier of this immense scale to see the big picture. To find what the jungle is hiding, one must stop trying to hack through the physical world and instead bypass it entirely. Far away from Mexico, a student named Luke sits in a quiet, silent room staring at a glowing computer screen. He isn't covered in mud or hacking through vines with a knife. He is exploring from a pristine digital environment. His vehicle is an airplane flying high over the canopy, equipped with a technology called LiDAR. LiDAR is a remote sensing method that uses pulses of laser light to measure distances and create high-resolution 3D maps of the ground below. Moving the search into the sky bypasses the physical limitations of the jungle floor. Think of LiDAR as a massive, highly advanced, invisible flashlight pointing straight down at the Earth. As the plane flies, it fires hundreds of thousands of individual laser beams down at the ground every single second. While most regular light bounces off the top of the leafy trees, LiDAR beams are tiny enough to slip through the microscopic cracks between the leaves, threading the needle to hit the bare dirt below. This mathematical sorting of light pulses separates the temporary trees from the permanent Earth. Back at his computer, Luke watches as the smart machine receives millions of these light bounce measurements. The computer systematically identifies every single data point labeled tree, bush, or vine and deletes them from the screen. Luke gasps. In an instant, that chaotic green wall is stripped away, leaving a pristine map of the bare ground. LiDAR provides the ability to completely erase the noise of the present. Looking at the bare dirt on his screen, Luke spots a massive anomaly. It is far too geometric to be a natural rock formation or a cave. The data outlines the unmistakable shapes of a sprawling, lost ancient city. This colossal stone metropolis had been sitting quietly in the dirt, directly underneath the swinging monkeys and buzzing beetles, the entire time. Peeling back the living forest reveals a forgotten civilization that has been sitting right beneath our feet. It is easy to look at the ground and assume we know exactly what is there. But for centuries, an entire urban landscape has been hidden right beneath our feet, completely swallowed by nature. In Central America, a sprawling, impenetrable jungle canopy has covered the landscape like a thick green blanket for a millennium. For thousands of years, to anyone walking through the dense underbrush, this environment appeared to be completely wild, devoid of any organized human structure. But modern researchers turned to LiDAR. LiDAR is a remote sensing technology that uses pulsed lasers from an airplane to measure the exact distance to the ground, effectively acting as a digital screen that strips away the dense, chaotic layers of leaves. When the trees were erased from the data, the ground underneath revealed giant, rigid squares and perfectly straight lines carved into the earth. Nature does not grow in perfect grids. This massive, artificial anomaly has been resting in plain sight all along. This specific location is now called Valeriana. The data shows a footprint far larger than a primitive village or a few scattered homes. If you took every house in your neighborhood, combined it with the entire neighborhood next door, and squished them all together, you would only be looking at a fraction of the site. This was a densely packed, highly connected urban center that actively housed thousands upon thousands of families. The architects behind this sprawling metropolis were the ancient Maya, a highly intelligent group of builders who engineered this city a long, long time ago. As researchers scanned across the sprawling neighborhoods, the most prominent shapes on the screen were massive, triangle-shaped mountains. These are the pyramids. Built entirely out of solid stone, some of these structures reach as high as a modern skyscraper. Valeriana was a highly organized, three-dimensional metropolis on a scale that competes with modern urban planning. To build this, the Maya faced a significant engineering constraint. They possessed no dump trucks, no heavy lifting cranes, and no modern machinery. To move these enormous boulders, they relied on bare hands, strong ropes, and a clever understanding of physics to drag the massive rocks into place. Every single heavy block was lifted and stacked piece by piece, locking together to form precise, interlocking structures. The layout here is highly calculated. The map reveals a strict, organized master plan that contradicts the idea of a messy or jumbled settlement. Long, flat roads made of bright white stone connected the city together. You could walk straight from a residential stone house, down a wide sidewalk, directly to the giant pyramids. By engineering these pristine, mud-free highways, the Maya demonstrated their control over a difficult and chaotic jungle environment. Valeriana has transitioned from a hidden jungle story into a fully mapped, undeniable reality. Finding this massive, connected infrastructure forces us to recognize the ancient Maya as master engineers who executed architectural ambitions matching our own. This kingdom slept quietly under a thick blanket of leaves for 1,000 years, yet its geometric foundations remained completely intact. LiDAR technology provided the map, but the human hands of the Maya built a stone kingdom capable of outlasting a millennium in the wild. When we picture ancient Maya cities, we usually imagine something like this: quiet, gray stone pyramids emerging from the canopy of a dense green jungle. Seeing these structures covered in dust and vines makes it easy to assume the ancient Maya world was a somber, silent place, frozen in rock. To understand what this place actually looked like, we have to rewind the clock. We are zooming down through the trees and walking right into the middle of the city of Valeriana while it was fully awake. Stepping back into that reality replaces the illusion of gray stone with a bright, fiery world. The crumbling monuments we see today are the faded, bare bones of a brilliantly vibrant society. Our first stop is the Plaza. This is a massive, sprawling, flat courtyard sitting in the very middle of the city. Surrounding you on all sides are massive stone pyramids, looming high overhead and dominating the skyline. Looking up at those giant steps, you find that the Maya plastered these structures and painted them a bright, fiery red. The entire cityscape glowed intensely, catching the light so the buildings resembled a permanent setting sun. We often expect ancient architecture to be drab, but the Maya prioritized saturated, intense color. This central courtyard served as the pulsing center of daily life, anchored by towering crimson walls. On market day, this open space transforms into a wall of sound. Thousands of people are packed in, laughing, talking, and trading goods. Take a breath, and the air is thick with the smell of sweet roasting corn and fresh honey. Everywhere you look, merchants are selling vivid textiles. Women weave intricate blankets on looms, pulling through threads dyed a brilliant sky blue. And then there are the jewelers. They are laying out shiny, smooth, green pieces of jade, a dense mineral that served as the ultimate symbol of wealth in the region. In the Maya economy, these polished green stones were more precious and valuable than gold. You can spot the kings and queens walking through the crowds by their towering, wobbly headdresses. Those massive hats are constructed from hundreds of shimmering green feathers. They come from the quetzal bird, a forest species with incredibly long, vivid tail plumage. In Valeriana, wealth meant capturing the rarest, most striking colors found directly in nature. When you put the red walls, the blue textiles, and the green jade back together, the initial image of a spooky, abandoned ruin vanishes. This was a dense urban environment. Thousands of people called these bright neighborhoods home. Every single day brought a continuous flow of live music, delicious food cooking over open fires, and families navigating their daily routines. Valeriana was a loud, happy, and deeply colorful celebration of life. Did you know the ancient Maya played a sport so incredibly difficult that athletes had to bounce a solid rubber bowling ball across a stone court without ever using their hands or feet. This topographical map shows what we find when we look deep into the jungle using aerial LiDAR mapping. LiDAR is a remote sensing technology that uses laser pulses to measure distances and reveal hidden structures beneath thick forest canopies. When you clear away the trees, you find a massive sports arena shaped like a capital letter I, defined by these enormous sloping stone walls on either side. Building a stadium of this size required massive amounts of stone and labor. That level of structural investment points to an institution at the center of Maya daily life, rather than a casual afternoon pastime. The people who gathered in these arenas came to watch a game called Pok-ta-Pok. If you look at the basic objective, moving a ball down a court to score a point, it shares some DNA with modern soccer or basketball, but that is exactly where the similarities end. The ancient rules stripped away the most basic tools human beings use to control objects. If you step onto this court thinking like a modern point guard, you will fail. The athletes who played here had to obey an entirely different set of physical laws. Take the ball itself. Modern sports rely on lightweight, air-filled spheres, but the Maya used something entirely solid. They tapped native rubber trees, collecting the thick white sap and clumping it together to craft a dense core. The curing process created an object with a bizarre set of physical properties. It weighed as much as a modern bowling ball, yet it retained an extreme, highly unpredictable bounce. A 10-pound sphere ricocheting off stone at high speeds turns the match into an exercise in hazard management. Players had to control sheer, dangerous momentum just to avoid severe injury. Then there are the rules. Players were absolutely forbidden from using their hands, and they were forbidden from using their feet. So how exactly do you stop and redirect a heavy, fast-moving rubber boulder when you can't grab it or kick it? The solution required players to strike the ball using only their hips, their knees, and their elbows. This carved relief illustrates how they survived. Notice the thick, padded wood belts and heavy knee pads that prevented shattered bones. To keep the mass airborne, athletes dove directly onto the stone floor, launching underneath the ball to bump it upward with their torsos. Pok-ta-Pok forced athletes to override their natural reflexes. They had to completely rewire their athletic instincts, turning their core and their joints into blunt instruments against a harsh stone environment. While the athletes battled on the floor, the real scale of the event was happening above them, with thousands of spectators packing those high, sloping walls. The crowds transformed the arena into a wall of color, with fans wearing bright, elaborate face paint as they cheered for their local champions. That visual energy was matched by a deafening wall of sound. Spectators beat rhythmically on large, intricately carved wooden drums, sending deep, booming echoes bouncing off the limestone walls. The physical violence on the court and the deafening roar of the drums fed into each other. This was a unified, high-stakes cultural spectacle that brought the entire community together. Defying gravity with a 10-pound solid rubber boulder, using nothing but your torso, your joints, and immense willpower, is a near-impossible physical feat. It was a supreme test of strength, practice, and endurance, cementing Pok-ta-Pok as the most thrilling and demanding game to ever echo through the jungle. Deep in the dense, vast jungle canopy sit the towering stone pyramids of the ancient Maya city of Valeriana. Citizens living around these structures spent their days in sweltering heat, expending huge amounts of energy. They even played intense, heavy ball games on giant stone courts under the sun. All of that physical exertion created an immediate, daily demand. Thousands of people needed millions of gallons of water to drink and to wash their clothes. But Valeriana sits in a geographical dead zone. There are no major rivers, and there are no nearby lakes. Without a natural, flowing liquid source to draw from, a population this massive should have run dry and collapsed from thirst within days. Yet they built a thriving metropolis anyway. How they kept those thousands of people hydrated remained a geographical mystery for centuries. Researchers used LiDAR to pierce the thick vegetation of the jungle floor. LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging, uses laser pulses to digitally strip away the trees and map the bare ground underneath. When archaeologists looked at the bare earth of Valeriana, they found a network of massive, deep, man-made depressions dug directly into the soil. These deep bowls were reservoirs, enormous, ancient pools constructed specifically for catching water. To keep liquid from seeping out, Maya engineers lined the inner surface with smooth clay, creating a permanent, watertight seal. The Maya bypassed the search for natural lakes and used earthwork engineering to build their own indestructible water vaults. The region experiences a fierce rainy season, where the sky dumps massive amounts of water in a short window. The challenge was capturing that sudden deluge before it drained away into the jungle floor. To solve this, they graded the city's streets, engineering long paved roads on a tilt. When heavy rains hit the pavement, millions of gallons of water funneled down these inclines directly into the clay-lined reservoirs. They hoarded this captured runoff, rationing it out to keep the population alive through the scorching months of the dry season, when no rain fell at all. Valeriana operated as a massive, interconnected machine, entirely engineered to harvest the sky. Every gallon saved in these reservoirs also sustained the city's surrounding hillsides. They built clever agricultural systems called terraces. Terraces are giant, flat steps carved directly into the slopes of hillsides, supported by stone walls, which prevent soil and seeds from washing away. On these steps, they irrigated tall, green stalks of maize, an ancient variety of corn. They harvested the maize and mashed the kernels down to bake warm, nutrient-dense tortillas. But the most fascinating crop sustained by those reservoirs grew on a very peculiar tree. Instead of sprouting from the branches, large, bumpy, colorful pods grew directly out of the tree's dark trunk. Farmers would crack these pods open to extract the little seeds inside, then carefully roast and crush them into a dark paste. This was the world's first cacao. The Maya mixed the crushed paste with water, honey, and spicy chili, pouring it back and forth to create a bubbling, frothy hot drink. By mastering their harsh environment through ingenious water engineering, the Maya didn't just survive a riverless landscape, they forged a culinary legacy we still taste today. How does an enormous, thriving metropolis, home to tens of thousands of people and built of heavy stone, completely vanish from the face of the earth? For hundreds of years, the ancient Maya city of Valeriana was bursting with life. Generations of families lived, traded, and thrived in what was a highly advanced urban center. The scale of their engineering was staggering. They constructed massive stone pyramids that anchored the city and reached high above the jungle canopy. Surrounding these monuments were enormous public spaces. Citizens gathered in stone courts to watch and play high-stakes ball games. Their culture was incredibly rich. They carved intricate jade jewelry, wore vibrant feathers, and were known to drink large quantities of thick, bubbly chocolate. Valeriana was a pinnacle of engineering and art. It was a city that looked permanent, carved so deeply into the stone that it should have lasted forever. Then, the weather turned. The sky stayed blue, cloudless, and dry for too long. This diagram shows the effect of the drought on their infrastructure. To survive dry seasons, the Maya had engineered giant swimming pools to catch and store rainwater. But without rain, the water levels in these massive reservoirs steadily dropped. The consequences were fatal. Without regular rainfall, the corn crops withered in the fields, and eventually the reservoirs went completely bone dry. Even the most brilliant master builders cannot control the clouds. Their heavy stone infrastructure, no matter how advanced, was ultimately powerless against a shifting climate. As the city became unlivable, the families of Valeriana faced an impossible decision: stay and starve, or abandon the only home they had ever known. They chose to survive. They packed up their children, jade stones, and feathers, and began a slow walk away from the giant red pyramids. They traveled far from the dry interior, migrating toward the oceans and deeper rivers where they could start over. Rather than a sudden collapse, this was a calculated, strategic retreat. The people survived, but they left their architectural masterpiece entirely empty. With the people gone, the stone metropolis fell completely silent. Almost immediately, the jungle went to work. A little green vine crawled up the stairs of the main pyramid. A tiny seed fell onto the stone road and took root. Those little seeds grew into massive timber. Thick, damp moss slowly carpeted the ball courts. Entire plazas were swallowed by the expanding forest floor. Over the next 1,000 years, the jungle gave the city a thick green hug. It erased Valeriana from the visible world, while simultaneously keeping the stones safe beneath a protective canopy. Valeriana remained completely hidden. You could hike directly over the ruins and never know a sprawling empire was sleeping right beneath your boots. That camouflage held until a researcher named Luke flew overhead with a technology called LiDAR. LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, fires invisible laser pulses from an aircraft to measure precise distances to the Earth's surface. Computers analyze these returning laser pulses to digitally strip away the canopy, exposing the geometry of the hidden ruins. The lasers effectively told the ruins to wake up, revealing an immense, sprawling grid of ancient architecture. Modern laser scanning allows archaeologists to bypass 1,000 years of biological camouflage, turning what was once blind jungle exploration into precise mapping. So the next time you look out at a dense, overgrown forest, a public park, or brush in your own backyard, look a little closer. If a metropolis can hide in plain sight for 10 centuries, what other secrets has the Earth swallowed up, just waiting for someone curious to find them? Please like and subscribe if you like it. Thank you, and see you next time.